You're watching Talk with Audrey. Welcome back. School choice refers to the process of selecting a K-12 education option from among the myriad of choices that parents now have. National School Choice Week President Andrew Campanella joins me now with information about school choice, the educational options available, and what it could mean for you and your family. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so very much for joining me. First, let's talk about the organization and the goals that you have for National School Choice Week.
Well, we are an independent public awareness effort, and the goal of National School Choice Week is to let parents know that they have choices when it comes to their children's education. And we want parents to use School Choice Week as a time to look at those options, to evaluate them, and to begin to plan for the next school year. So we work with schools and homeschool groups and organizations and encourage them to plan informative events that parents can attend to learn more about these types of schools. So we're talking school fairs, information sessions, parent nights, and even huge celebrations.
So Andrew, I know that you went to public schools.
I did, yes.
Yes, as I did. What happened? Like all of a sudden, there are all these options that are available that weren't available when we were coming up.
Yeah, such a good question. And this is one of the myths that I try to dispel. And the myth is that there is somehow a huge problem with every public school in this country and that people need to find alternatives. The reality is that school choice includes public education. It's just a matter of what we need as a society has changed. It used to be 50 years ago that if you didn't excel in school, you would still be able to find a decent working or middle class job in a community near you. Nowadays, students are competing not just against kids in other towns for jobs like they used to, but there's this international competition for goods and services that is requiring today's students to have higher level skills so that they can win that competition. So in order to get kids to acquire those higher level skills, they need education settings that will inspire them, motivate them, and challenge them. And that's all a long way to saying every child learns differently. What might be a good fit for one student isn't necessarily a good fit for another. And research shows that when you have more choices in terms of schools where you send your child, your student is more likely to acquire knowledge and to graduate.
Which means that they're enjoying the school experience. And of course, a lot of kids get bored.
Absolutely. Bored and unhappy. And what you want is an environment where the student feels a spark of interest in a subject, whether it's in school or at an extracurricular activity, and that subject that interests them or that activity that interests them draws them into the school, keeps them wanting to go to school, and then encourages them to learn all the other subjects too. So that is a goal. And if you can find a school for your child that has programs and classes and extracurricular activities that they might be interested in, that is very promising.
Currently, there are about 6 different options. Can we talk about them? And if you would, talk about them in detail. And let's start with the traditional public school option.
Let's go over them really quickly, one by one, and then we'll go into the details. So you have traditional public schools, public charter schools, magnet schools, private schools, online academies, and homeschooling. So traditional public schools, those are the neighborhood public schools like you and I attended. And traditional public schools are available for every child across the country. There are now policies in place in many states, more than half of U.S. states, that allow parents to choose public schools outside of their zones. So even though traditional public schools are kind of similar to the way they were when we attended them, opportunity within the system has expanded dramatically. So we're seeing that yielding higher achievement in traditional district schools. Then you have public charter schools. Public charter schools are also tuition free. They have to accept all students, and they are open to everybody. And charter schools are similar to district schools with a few exceptions. They're not always run by a school district. They're run by a nonprofit or a college or university or an organization. And they are still accountable to taxpayers, but they are free to experiment with different instructional methods or curriculum and provide an opportunity to families who might not be getting the best education for their individual kids in a district school. Magnet schools are also public schools, tuition free, and they focus on themes, things like math, science, technology, the performing arts. I've even been to magnet schools that focus on things like medicine or space technology. The goal of these magnet schools is to draw students in with one subject that really interests them and then uses that as a magnet to encourage them to learn all the other subjects as well. You also have private schools, and everybody knows what private schools are. They do charge tuition. You can have religious private schools. You can also have independent and secular private schools. At many private schools across the country, there are scholarship programs available. You can get a scholarship to attend a private school or find out if your state offers a state-funded scholarship. Those are occasionally available for lower or middle-income families. You also have online academies, and in most states, online academies are full-time, statewide, tuition-free academies that parents can send their kids to. And when I say send their kids to, parents are choosing these schools for their kids. Their kids are logging on. They have a teacher. They have classmates. They then meet up for other activities and extracurriculars. And finally, homeschooling. Homeschooling is the original school choice. Homeschooling is the process of educating kids in the home. And you would think that since homeschooling has been around for so long, it might be decreasing in popularity with all these other options out there. The reverse is true. There are more resources than ever before for homeschoolers, more online tutorials, more, web-based coursework that parents can tap into. So homeschooling grows by a rate of about 3% every year. More people are homeschooling than ever. So those are the 6 different types of schools that parents can choose from.
Wow. A lot of options to consider, especially if you're a parent and you have more than one child and you're considering a number of different options. That can be a pretty interesting process. So how can parents find out about the wonderful schools that are close by to them?
Well, the first thing I encourage parents to do is to download a guide to school choice in their state, because even though these choices are available and even though parents have more choices than ever, school choice policies are different based on the state you live in. So if you go to our website, schoolchoiceweek.com, you can download a guide to school choice in your state.
And what about families who are considering changing schools? Because there's a lot of anxiety around that process as well.
Absolutely. So I have some tips for families who might be considering making that change or who are just thinking about it. First suggestion is this: start this process now. National School Choice Week happens in January because this is the time of year that parents need to begin looking at those options. Download the guide to school choice and then make a list of all the schools that meet your family's unique criteria. Once you make that list, schedule visits. Visit those schools and bring your kids. Talk with teachers, talk with administrators, talk with school leaders. Ask as many questions as you want, because remember, you are essentially conducting the interview of that school. Then you want to talk to other parents and ask them questions. Get the real scoop on how these schools treat kids and treat parents and how things are working out for those parents and their kids. Finally, but most importantly, constantly talk to your kids throughout this process. Ask them lots of questions so that you can narrow down that list and make some great choices.
Well, Andrew, it's almost like applying for college. So is School Choice Week going to expand to school choice tours?
We have our hands full with K through 12 education. And if you think about it, it is similar to college. You're absolutely right, because people are choosing college based on what they are interested in, based on their learning style, based on where they might be most comfortable. And so as our economy has changed and as the demand for higher skills has increased, we now need to apply some of those similar lessons to K-12 education. The United States has the best higher education system across the globe. And our K-12 system needs to catch up to that in terms of quality and in terms of opportunity and choice.
Well, certainly if we're going to compete globally, we need everyone to be really well educated. Well, this has been really interesting, Andrew. And guys, after the break, we're going to talk in part 2 of our conversation in detail about what you need to know if you're choosing a school for your child. I'll be right back.